Chapter 3. The History of the Jews. A relation of what befell the Jews under King Antiochus, and what battles took place between them and his captains, and to what lengths he at last proceeded. There was a certain man of the kings of Macedon, who was called Antiochus, among whose deeds was this, that when Ptolemy, the above-mentioned king of Egypt, was dead, he went with his armies to attack the second Ptolemy. And having conquered and slain Ptolemy, he won his country Egypt, and took possession of it. From hence, as his affairs gained an accession of strength, he subdued a great part of the earth, the king of Persia, and others paying him obeisance. Wherefore his heart was lifted up, and being puffed up with pride, he commanded images to be made after his own likeness, that men should worship them, to his glorifying and honor. And when these were made, he sent messengers to all the regions of his empire, commanding them to be worshipped and adored. To these commands the nations assented, fearing and dreading his tyranny. Now there were at that time in Judea 3 men, the very worst of all mortals, and each of them had, as it were, a connection in the same sort of vice. The name of one of these 3 was Melanius, and the second Simeon, and the third Alcimus. And about that time there appeared certain images, which the citizens of Jerusalem beheld in the air for the space of 40 days. There were the appearance of men riding on fiery horses, fighting with each other. So those impious men went to Antiochus to obtain from him some authority, that they might perpetrate with ease whatever they wished, of whoredom and plundering of men's goods, and in short mightest rule over the rest, and might keep them in subjection. And they said to him, O king, there have appeared lately in the air over Jerusalem fiery horsemen, contending with each other, and on that account the Hebrews have rejoiced, saying that this portended the death of King Antiochus. Which words the king believing, being filled with rage, he marched to Jerusalem in the shortest possible time, and came upon the nation not at all forewarned of his approach. And his men attacked the inhabitants, and slew them with the sword, making a very great slaughter. Many also they wounded, and a great multitude they led into captivity. But some, escaping, fled into the mountains and woods, where they continued a long time, feeding upon herbs. After this, Antiochus determined to depart from their country. But the evil which he had done to the nation did not suffice him, but he left as his substitute a man named Felix, enjoining him to compel the Jews to worship his image and to eat swine's flesh, which Felix did, sending for the people to obey the king in the thing which he had commanded him. But they refused to do the things whereupon they were called. Wherefore he slew a great multitude of them, preserving those wicked wretches and their family, and raising their dignity. Chapter 4. The History of the Death of Eleazar the Priest. Afterwards was seized Eleazar, who had gone with the doctors unto Ptolemy, and was then a very old man, 90 years of age, and he was placed before Felix, who said to him, Eleazar, truly you are a wise and prudent man, and indeed I have loved you for many years. Therefore I should not wish your death. Therefore obey the king, and worship his image, and eat of his sacrifices, and depart in safety. To whom Eleazar replied, I am not about to forsake my obedience to God in order to obey the king. And Felix, coming up, whispered to him, Take care to send for someone to bring you flesh from your own offerings, which place upon my table, and eat some part of that in the presence of the people, that they may know that you have obeyed the king, and you will save your life without any harm done to your religion. Eleazar answered him, I do not obey God under any kind of fraud, but rather I will endure this your violence. For inasmuch as I am an old man of 90 years, my bones are now weakened, and my body is wasted away. If I therefore shall with a brave spirit endure these torments, from which even the bravest young men shrink back in fear, my people and the youth of my nation will bravely imitate me, and will say, How is it that we may not endure these pains, which one who is inferior to us in strength, and less substantial in flesh and bones, has undergone? Which indeed will be better for me, than to deceive them by a feigned obedience to the king, for they will then say, If that decrepit old man, wise and prudent as he is clinging to life and overcome by the pain of temporary matters, abdicating his religion, Truly that will be lawful for us, which is lawful for him, since he is an old man and a wise one, and one whom we ought to follow. Wherefore I would rather die, leaving to them constancy in religion, and patience against tyranny, than live after having weakened their constancy in obeying their Lord and following his commandments, so that through me they may be rendered happy, not unhappy. Now when Felix had heard the determination of Eleazar, he was violently enraged with him, and commanded him to be tortured in a variety of ways, so that he came into the most desperate mortal struggle, and said, Thou, O God, knowest that I might have delivered myself from the troubles into which I have fallen, by obeying another rather than thee. This, however, I have not done, but I have preferred obeying thee, and have esteemed all the violence offered me as light, for the sake of constancy in obedience to thee. And now I think little of the things which have happened to me according to thy good pleasure, and support them as well as I can. I therefore pray thee that thou wilt accept this from me, and cause me to die before I become weaker in endurance. And God heard his prayers, and immediately he died. But he left his people devoted to the worship of their God, and endued with a sound fortitude and perseverance in religion, and patience to bear up against the trials which awaited them.